Welcome everybody to another Tomorrow.bio webinar. Today the topic is Tomorrow.bio launching in the US. As some of you might know, we have had a soft launch in the US, and technically this is still part of the soft launch, but we're more and more becoming active and public about it. And today Fernando and I, as the two founders of Tomorrow, first of all, we'll run you through a couple of slides of who we are, for those of who you don't know us yet, what we're doing, how we're set up, how our activity in the US looks, and then of course we're answering all your questions. Bear with us, we might be pretty quick to answer those questions, so if you feel like we're not being comprehensive enough with the answer, feel free to restate the question, but there's a shit ton of questions right now already, so we might be relatively quick. Now, without further ado, let's briefly run through how we're set up, and we're starting with a couple of slides. Now, as I said, Tomorrow.bio is launching in the US, and my team will tell me if the slides actually work well, if this works, because there's a big delay here in when the slides are showing up. So when we talk about Tomorrow.bio, we're talking about a couple of different organizations. So Tomorrow.bio, which Fernando and I here are running, is the operative organization. The organization that does all the SST and contracts and is basically the direct contact point to you. Then there's the European Biostasis Foundation, which is the long-term storage facility in Switzerland. And last but not least, there's the Patient Care Foundation, which is the asset management organization that does all the money management. Very importantly, all questions that you might have about us or any of these organizations, we will not see them if they're in YouTube. So put them scan this QR code and then put them into Slido. There you can up and down vote questions. Very important. We will go from the most upvoted questions to the ones that haven't received many uploads yet. So if there's a question that you feel like is interesting to have answered, just upvote that question. I already briefly introduced these three organizations. Basically, who does what? It's basically operations, long-term care, long-term storage, and we have some associated organizations that do long-term research for everything that's really required for revival, but also like day-to-day things like improving cryopreservation procedures and so on. So far, we've only been active in Europe, right? If you try to sign up with us, I don't know, last year or so, from somewhere outside of Europe, that was in fact not possible. We only accepted members in Europe. In Europe, we have a couple of locations. So we have one of our core teams in Berlin. We have another team in Zurich. We have partner teams in other areas of Europe. Always with these emergency vehicles, right? Emergency vehicles means it's retrofitted ambulances that we buy, that we retrofit to be pretty much mobile operating rooms where you can do the whole procedure inside of them, right? Perfusion circuits are in there, monitoring equipment, everything you need to do the cryoprotection. And then later on, once the cryoprotection procedure is completed, we bring the patient to our long-term storage facility in Switzerland that is being run by the European Biostasis Foundation, where we have an operation room, where we have a CT scanner for quality assurance, where we have lab space for research and improving cryopreservation procedures, and of course where we have long-term storage. In fact, in our case in Switzerland, the long-term storage facility is underground, so protected as much as you can, even though of course Switzerland is a relatively stable, or very stable even, and secure country. And all of you of course know these doors that are being used for cryopreservation storage. Soon we will have whole body ITS doers as well. The prototype has already been completed. Soon it will arrive in Switzerland and then we'll test it. So going forward, it will not only be immersion storage, but also intermediate temperature storage. We're training our teams ourselves. We have a couple of doctors, perfusionists, support people, and so on, making sure that everybody gets preserved with the highest possible cryopreservation quality. Some of that we released last year, or actually in the beginning of this year, we released the reports from last year. We always do this on an annual basis. We also did a webinar for that, showing the quality of the cryopreservation, quality. On a CT scan, where you kind of get a visual impression, and then a quantification of that CT scan, where in these histograms you see that the quality of cryopreservation, that every part of the brain received enough cryoprotective agent concentration. Now, briefly, before we get into questions, let us tell you how we work in the US. In the US, Tomorrow.bio is partnering with kind of two organizations, with one main partner and then supported by another organization. Our main partner in the US is an organization called Resurgence Biomedical Services, Sciences, RBS. It's an organization that builds, that has local standby. There's always the standby organization, pretty much. Doctors, I give a few more information on 2 slides down the line, where if one of our members in the US has, needs standby, might die soon or has died, then we would, together with RBS, send a team to them in the US. The procedure would be done on site, the cryoprotection procedure, and then the patient, once cryoprotected, would be shipped to Switzerland, where then the final cool down and quality assurance is being done before the body would be placed in one of the doors. Now, there's another organization called Biostasis Technologies, it's an independent organization, a non-profit organization that does quality oversight over RBS to make sure that every case gets the best possible quality, and if something can be improved, then that is improved. Now, in the US, initially, we will have teams in New York, in California, and in Florida. Right now, if you want to sign up with us, these are the 3 main states where you can, in fact, sign up with us. In other regions of the US, you can technically sign up, but we would want you to understand that we don't have teams there yet, and so on. From the beginning of 2025, you can sign up with us in the US, wherever you are, at least in the continental US. To briefly, again, introduce this or give an overview of this partnership. So RBS is made up of, at least for some of you, known people like Aaron Drake, not directly involved, but at least part of the team. Aaron Mindel, Saya from Suspended Animation, right? So people that have been in this field and have been doing cryopreservation cases for many, many years, and in fact have probably done, at least together, the most cases ever. As I just said, California, New York, and Florida will be our first 3 locations. We will then expand coverage. But if someone says, hey, I want to sign up with you guys immediately, then of course they can technically do this right now. Just reach out to us. We just want to make sure that you understand what is already available in the US and what isn't, like where teams are and so on. In the US, we currently focus on whole body field cryoprotection, meaning the whole procedure is being done in one of these ambulances, at least similar to the ones that you just saw, meaning the procedure is done on site in front of the hospital in an ideal circumstance without any delay, which leads to best possible cryopreservation quality. Storage would be in Switzerland for now. At some point down the line, we will probably build other storage facilities, including in the US, but this is not something that we have right now, so this would be down the line. Now, of course, I'm happy to discuss that in questions later as well. There's always this discussion of, can you actually, on dry ice, ship a body, in this case, across the Atlantic without any problems, without ice crystal growth or formation. And in fact, what we do to mitigate this potential issue in the cryopreservation concentration, we go slightly higher in concentration in the end, at the end of perfusion, which then allows us with the so-called kind of equilibrium vitrification solution to mitigate the amount of ice crystal growth during the dry ice shipping phase as much as possible. Of course, we do everything to ship on dry ice as quick as possible as well, to reduce that time as much as possible. Currently, it would be immersion cryostasis, so the body would be in one of these immersion doors. In the future, we will offer ITS as well. ITS, this intermediate temperature storage, is technically a better storage solution. It will likely be more expensive. The exact prices remain to be seen. And for every case we do quality metrics via CT scans, which are then published every year to make sure that the quality of a cryopreservation goes continuously up. Now, if someone is interested in signing up with us, feel free to reach out to us. This is our sign-up flow. In fact, if you sign up with this voucher code Founders Rate on our webpage, the sign-up cost is halved. In the future, membership fee, meaning the fee that you pay monthly for cryopreservation while you're alive, is 50 euros a month, which is about as much as $50 US. But if you sign up until October 31st with the code Founders Rate, then it's only 25, and not only for 1 month or 1 year, but forever. So it's quite a good saving. The amount in coverage, of course, you find this on our webpage in a couple of days. In fact, a new webpage will launch, but currently on our old webpage, you still see that in the US, the amount that is required for whole body preservation is $220,000 US. So this would be the amount that would be required for life insurance, for example, or any other type of funding methodology. And now, without further ado, I think we should go into questions, because there's a lot of questions to make sure that we can handle most of them. All right. First questions. We're going from the top, and maybe I'll do one, you do one, or I'll take the science questions or something like that. So first question would be, can you cryopreserve everything except the brain? Great question. No. Not possible. We're not doing that. We're purely an organization that cryopreserve brains, of course, for the potential to be revived future. That's not possible. Right. Next question would be, in the contract is it written that you can sell the bodies to other companies. Why did you think this? That's not in a contract. That's not at all in our contract. First of all, it's not possible to sell, in quotation marks, bodies at all. There is a provision in the contract that where if there's instability at one organization, that then, let's say, for example, for whatever reason, there's a geopolitical problem in one area of the world, right? War coming up, or potential of war coming up, or something like that. Then cryopreservation organizations have the chance to transfer the cryopreserved patients to other organizations to make sure that they're being kept in cryostasis. I'll find some questions, otherwise I'm going from the top. Yeah.
Do you also plan to cover Canada eventually? Yes, we are already. We have a couple of members from Canada already, and we are working with some local organization to set up like a sports team from there as well. So I assume that next few months we'll have some news about Canada.
Right. Next question would be, is it possible or planned to also store stem cells independently, but in the same place or same cryostasis chamber? No, this is not planned. The reason is that there is, maybe in some edge cases, it makes sense to have stem cells separately, but since we're storing the whole body, the body, of course, has still stem cells, right? So if need be in the future, you would probably still find some stem cells if you need them, right? So this is not something that we offer. There's other organizations that do stem cell storage, so technically you could sign up with one of those. Yeah.
Okay, the next one is, do you plan smaller storage facilities in other EU countries, US states? besides the one in Switzerland that EBF is managing? Yes, we have been talking about this for a while. We still don't have anything formally planned, but we envision that we would like to open other facilities also to increase. This is also good for everyone because we increase security, and in case if anything happens in Switzerland, we have other facilities to move our patients around.
I mean, Switzerland is a super stable country, right? Probably one of the most, if not the most stable country in the world. But 50 or 100 years down the line, who knows? So down the line, ideally there's cryopreservation facilities all over the world that cover that. Next question would be, your research roadmap contains chemopreservation as well as cryo. Do you plan combined approaches of both? So there is, for those people who might not be super deep in the topic, there's technically a vitrification-based cryopreservation. There's chemical fixation, a chemical preservation, and then there's the combination, for example, what is called ASC, aldehyde stabilized cryopreservation. Under certain circumstances, we already use aldehyde stabilized or a variant of that right now, which is called immersion vitrification, where you would first do a chemical fixation via immersion, and then you do cryoprotection via immersion, and then you cool down. So we're definitely open to both. We do not offer it as something where someone can come to us and says, I want to do chemical fixation. We do it if the situation calls for it. So basically, if the vitrification-based cryopreservation would not lead to good quality, like good preservation quality, then under certain circumstances we use other, including immersion vitrification as a methodology to preserve. Yeah, so we definitely do that, and we plan to do or continue doing that.
Okay, next question is, when will Tomorrow.bio be fully active in the United States? We hope that we can be fully active starting by Jan 2025. We will notify everyone formally by email, but everything goes well. During this launch, there is no reason why we should not continue to expand.
The next question is, why do you prioritize US over Asia? Americans have access to 2 big organizations, whereas Asians do not have access to any Cryonics organization. So the main reason is unfortunately just logistical complexity. So we understand there's significantly more support also for us in the US. So for example, these organizations that we work with in the US, in Asia we would need to build every infrastructure ourselves. And in Asia, unfortunately, depending of course on which country you cover, we would have a lot of different countries, smaller countries that we need to cover, whereas China has a Cryonics organization called Yingfeng. But Asia is definitely something that we have on our to-do list. So stay tuned. Probably it's not going to be this or next year, but down the line, we definitely plan to have an organization there as well.
Okay, next question is, will the prices be exactly the same from euros to dollars? Yes, so currently we are still charging in euros. Eventually we may adjust the value to US dollars. That's not really an issue for us. But we still, just in order to keep everything simple, we are maintaining the same values proportionally.
Yeah. For the membership though.
Yes.
The membership,
yes.
Just to make it more simple, the membership is in euro. The one-time fee that you need at the time of cryopreservation, that is already denoted in US dollars,
yes.
So that you don't have this long-term currency risk. So that's 220,000 US dollars. So this is for everybody who's in the US, something to fully plan with. The membership fee is denoted in euros, so there might be small fluctuations, but over the last years there was very little fluctuation, a couple of %. But at least not where someone would need to take a risk or something like that. What is the official position, if any, of medicine towards cryopreservation? I'm not exactly sure what this question means. So if you mean medication before cryopreservation, then this would be absolutely 100% be something that you would need to discuss with your doctor. So there is no official recommendation or anything like that. After cryopreservation, so after the person or during cryopreservation, once the person has been legally pronounced, At that point, there is a range of medications that of course we use, but we only use it once the person has been legally declared dead, and then once the body has been handed over to us. Before that, while the person is still alive and under the care of their attendant physician, there we do not do anything or do not recommend anything.
Yeah. Next question here is, currently the cryopreservation process is very expensive. Is there any chance that the price will decrease in the not too distant future? We hope so. It's something that's a bit out of our direct control. It depends a lot of economies of scale. More members we have, then hopefully in the future we can drastically reduce the cost. But it's still going to take some time. There is no like a substantial price decrease in the near future.
No, probably not. But we're working on it. It's something that we really like. It's an important piece of the puzzle. Which countries will you expand to right after covering all of the US? There is no specific plan yet of a country rollout map. We will probably stay in Europe and the US for a bit. If someone wants to sign up on a case-by-case basis outside of these two regions, please reach out. But we would only do this on a case-by-case basis where we really want to understand or really make sure that people understand that we don't have teams anywhere else. There might be big delays, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah. The next question is, does Texas, USA, which has the world's largest medical center in Houston, still lack a cryopreservation facility? Timesheet.org is not active. Thoughts, please.
Yes,
what are your thoughts?
It's not active yet.
Yeah.
Currently, it doesn't have one. Nothing more. It's not our project, of course. So there's nothing. No cryopreservation storage there as of yet.
Cool. Next one is, can you explain the role of life insurance for Tomorrow.bio funding? Majority of our members use term life insurance as the way to fund their cryopreservation. We believe that this is currently, due to the fact that cryopreservation is so expensive, is the easiest way to make it accessible. So yeah, we recommend it. If you don't have all the funds right now, you go for term life insurance.
Right. Next question is, will Tomorrow Biostasis Foundation be in Italy in the future? So we are already in Italy. So if you're from Italy, you're more than welcome to sign up. Italy is one of the countries that we do cover with our teams in Europe. We don't have a team yet in Europe, but there's some local people that are working with us, so we're starting to work on that. But you can definitely sign up if you're from Italy.
Why are you putting California, New York, and Florida as the first states in the USA you will be accepting members from? The reason is because, as Emil explained, due to our partners, they are already operating there. So it was easier for us to start covering those states with quality since the beginning. That's basically the reason why we started from there.
Yeah. And eventually, that's the next kind of a similar question. Eventually, yes, we will be worldwide. But we want to make sure that once we're worldwide, and it's kind of very similar to why we're doing these 3 states right now, we want to make sure that if something happens to one of our members, wherever they are, that then we can cover them with good quality. At least, if someone wants to sign up with us outside these regions, reach out to us, but we do it on a case-by-case basis. We want to make sure that in these cases, people really understand what they're signing up for, that there's no teams close by, and so on and so on. In theory, it's possible, but it's just not automatically possible.
Is neuropreservation only the brain, or can it include the head and DNA storage too? For us, we only do brain-only cryopreservation, and one of the reasons is because we believe that it's easier and the quality can be better done that way. Emil can explain a bit more in detail.
Yeah, so in the past there was a bit of a discussion always if whole body preservation or neuropreservation, which is head preservation, has better quality. In our case, we decided for brain because we always perfuse through the ascending aorta, right? In all cases, we perfuse through the heart. In this case, if we perfuse through the heart, we hit all the 4 vessels that supply the brain, the 2 carotid arteries and the 2 vertebral arteries. Now, the advantage here is that under certain circumstances, if the circle of Willis, which is like a blood vessel circle kind of in the brain, if in older people it's not complete anymore, if it has some changes, then if you only, and this was in the past one of the problems, if you only cannulate here the carotids, you might not reach parts of the brain. Since we always cannulate the heart, we don't have that problem. We always reach all 4 vessels. And then the additional advantage is that for just brain preservation, we can make the prices even, or the cost is even lower, the long-term storage cost, than if you do the whole brain, because it's basically a function of size. So in our case, we've decided to do whole body or brain, try to keep brain as affordable as possible for people so that more people can afford it. And to your second question, if DNA doesn't need to be stored separately, because the brain already, there's like dura and like some tissue around the brain that already includes the DNA. So you have the DNA anyway. Right, okay. I kind of lost there. Maybe you find
the next question is, where does the preservation take place if the storage facility is in another country? For example, Germany dispatched a team and Switzerland storage. I'm not sure if I understood 100% the question, but that's the reason why we do field cryoprotection. So we start the procedure in loco. Yeah. As Bill already explained several times, we use one of our ambulances there to start the procedure and cool down the patient to minus 80 degrees Celsius. And eventually we transport the patient to Switzerland for further cooling down to cryogenic temperatures and storage. Yeah. So yes, we start the procedure in loco and then we finish it in Switzerland.
Right. Will artificial intelligence improve Cryonics methods in terms of efficacy? Possible, probably. Currently, I don't see any effects as of yet, but down the line, I would assume this is a probable thing. Yeah. Then maybe this I quickly answer. Is your board members of the EBF, is it elected or self-perpetuating? It's self-perpetuating. We will probably down the line have one patient representative that might be elected, but for the time being, to ensure the maximum of long-term keeping everything on mission, it is self-perpetuating.
Okay, next question is, Cryonics in the US grew very slowly in the past decades. What novel marketing techniques do you plan to bring there? Well, we still don't know. One of the biggest things we do here at Tomorrow, we are a very iterative company. So we test a lot of different things. We come up with different hypotheses. So maybe what works for Germany doesn't work for Italy, the same for US. So there's still a lot of different things we want to test. We don't have a specific answer for that right now. We're going to test first what we already do here and see how the market responds. And then we'll move from there. Actually, in the event of Biostasis 2024, we're going to have a whole discussion just about marketing cryonics. So whoever wants to discuss more about this topic, also feel free to join us there in Switzerland.
Right. Are you planning to offer SST for ALCO or CI patients? As of now, we don't. There are independent SST organizations in the US that you can sign up with, right? If you signed up with one of these two organizations. Not saying we will never, but of course this would mean we need to negotiate with them in detail and find a partnership agreement. For now, that's not something we're doing.
Next question is, can a subscriber from Europe who decides to stay in the US be cryopreserved by the company in the US and then transferred back to Europe? If you are talking about field cryoprotection, as Emil explained, yes, this is possible. But if you are cryopreserved with another organization and then in the future you plan to be transferred to Europe, this has never happened before, so we don't know. Maybe. But we cannot guarantee if this can happen.
Yeah, so you would need to, you can do it, you can only transport currently, realistically speaking, directly after cryoprotection, once you're at minus 80 degrees. No one has done transport by flight or by ship across the Atlantic at cryogenic temperatures. Apart from the fact that it's not easy to, there is no agreement from one organization to hand over people to another organization. So for the time being, I think it would only be possible if you signed up with us and then be cryopreserved by one of our partner teams or our teams, and then be brought over.
Next question. Do you plan to sell something like cooling kits to ensure perfect cryopreservation state for acutely deceived people until Tomorrow.bio team arrives? Yeah. Yes, we have done this before. We don't have a product where you go on the website and just buy it, but we do have like first aid kits.
Two actually.
Yeah. With and without the Lucas, which is the CPR machine. So if you're interested, just contact us and we can give you more information about it.
In the map you've shown, there are countries marked as local in training. What does local in training mean? Is it a future Tomorrow Biostasis center? No, so these are not centers. That means we have teams ourselves, right? So in Europe, for example, in Berlin, in Zurich, and so on. Now, Berlin and Zurich covers a certain region if you just drive, right? But let's say someone dies in the south of Spain. We are pretty much required to then know early and dispatch the team early to be there on time. Meaning usually, of course, we always dispatch our teams when we know that someone might die in the next couple of days or even a week, right? To be then on site when we're needed. Now, some people unfortunately also die without much advance notice, right? Take it, I don't know, like you're feeling fine and then someone dies pretty quickly. In those cases, we would need to bring a team from far away. Now, that far away, there might then be a time when the person has already died, meaning the heart doesn't beat anymore, but we're not there yet. To bridge that time, we're always happy to train local teams. So doctors and just anybody who is willing to do the initial parts of the cryoprotection procedure, the stabilization part, meaning chest compressions, giving oxygen, cooling, and so on. To kind of bridge this time until our professional teams can arrive. Now, these regions that you saw on the map, or these areas that you saw on the map, there are teams there that we're currently training. They're not yet ready, but hopefully down the line, maybe towards the end of the year, early next year, we would then have like local teams here that can do the initial parts, if need be, until we arrive.
And actually, I would like to open an invitation here. If you'd like to start a local organization in your region, on your city, we're also super happy to help. And as I said, this is one of the best ways for us to not only build a community, but also to improve coverage in case of an emergency. So please reach out if you are interested and would like to participate. We're super happy to help.
Yeah. To quickly answer two quick science questions. One is, will you have an S-mix-like metric for estimating room temp ischemia? So we're I think our last report, the updated version, has all the data to calculate the S-mix in it. I don't know if we have calculated, but we're definitely, if not, we will update our reports from last year. Mm-hmm. So S-mix is definitely one factor. And then, of course, you have, since we're CT scanning all of our patients, you also have a CT scan. To be fair, a CT scan doesn't necessarily tell you how good the S-mix was, but if the S-mix was bad and it was not immersion vitrification, then the CT scan also will look bad, at least from a correlation standpoint. There was another question which I don't see anymore, but maybe it was upvoted. It was if we're also taking brain biopsies for another quality metric. And in fact, that is something that we do, but only if the members have given us
authorization.
Have authorized us to do that. Since that's exactly for that reason. If you just look at the CT scan, a bad CT scan means very, very likely bad ultrastructure preservation. Ultrastructure preservation means, the cellular structure and the insides of the cell and so on. So if you zoom in with an electron microscope, but good CT scan does not necessarily mean good ultrastructure. So assuming that on average you can get good CT scans, which at least last year in all of our cases we have gotten, not all of them, but most of them, next step, we will add ultrastructure, an ultrastructure preservation metric, quality metric, that we will do to also check that.
Cool. Next question. Cryopreservation is done when the heart is already stopped and the person is dead. Can you confirm this? Yes. So we can only start the procedure in the moment that the person is declared legally dead by a local physician or whoever can declare a person legally dead according to the law of their country.
Yeah. By the way, just a quick heads up. If you have additional questions, right, we might not go through I might not be able to go through every question. If there's stuff that you feel like is super exciting, upvote it. And then in the end, we will go from the top again to see which question we haven't covered yet, and do another round, do another check. But until then, we'll just continue. I'm not exactly sure where we were.
The question here is that can you indicate the most important recent studies on this topic and whether there are informative articles or books?
So there's our new webpage will launch in a couple of
weeks.
Couple of days. No. Yeah, that's probably sometimes in mid-September. So that will be part of that. Check it out. There's going to be a lot of stuff to read and links to if you want to dig deeper. Coming up very soon. Yeah.
At some point, the waking up will be possible. Why would you wake up already dead people to an overpopulated world without hair, no force and power? I'm let you.
Yeah. So I don't see exactly where the question was. Yeah, so it's unclear when. Can I have it?
Yeah.
It's unclear yet. It's not yet known when you can resuscitate someone from cryostasis. It probably takes. I don't know. It's probably not 1,000 years. It's definitely not 10 years either. So it might be 50 years. It might be 100 years. It might be 150 years. It's very difficult to say. In fact, I think it's impossible to say. So why would someone do that? There's a couple of reasons. So first of all, the foundation that is the guardian of the cryopreserved patient, the non-profit foundation in Switzerland, that's their goal. That's the purpose of that foundation, and that purpose by Swiss law cannot be changed. Then that foundation has the money to do it as well. There's a couple of other reasons that a future society might feel morally obligated to revive someone if it can. And regarding the point of overpopulation, so based on every prediction right now, the population will go into the population curve growth will stop around between, I think the prediction is around 13 billion people. Now, I would argue that with two remaining technologies that we need, fusion reactors and vertical farming, which hopefully will come about relatively soon. Vertical farming already works pretty well. Fusion reactors, fingers crossed. That with these two things, we can basically generate enough food, enough water for a much, much larger population. And we always need to remember, the amount of people who are cryopreserved right now, right? It's in a couple of thousands. Let's say over the next years, this goes up to 1 million, which currently there is no indication that it will. But let's say all of us, we do our job really, really well, and a lot of people decide that they want to be cryopreserved. Even if this goes up to 1 million, 1 million additional people in the future out of 13 billion, that's not even one in 1,000 of additional people, right? So it's a negligible amount of new additional people that the world, with these two technologies would not have any problem, I would argue, to handle.
Okay, next one here is, could we combine standby teams across all cryonics organizations to increase coverage? Have you reached out to CI, Alcor, and others about this?
So I think this makes a lot of sense in theory. In practice, it's difficult. We want to make sure that in every case quality is basically up to our standards. Not saying others don't want to do that, but finding the details and negotiating these things is quite tough. Currently, we like it better to just build our own teams, train them, have doctors on board. But that does not mean we're against it, right? So if other organizations are down for it and want to, we're more than happy to talk and discuss. We're always happy to collaborate on these things.
Okay. Sorry, this is getting very chaotic here, the question. So the next one I see here is, on the sign up site, I only see full body preservation, not brain only. Why is brain only not listed in the method section? Brain only is available only in Europe for now. We decided to do this just for a matter of simplicity, so we don't have extra operational complexities in the software launch in the US. But eventually, we're going to offer brain only in the United States as well.
Yeah. All right, I'm starting to go from the top again to answer those questions with the most upvotes. So if there's any question that you feel like is exciting, upvote it. Yeah. Do you have a list of cities in Europe with fast response people or team? Currently, it's not on our webpage. You saw it on the slide, but the new webpage will include it as well. So currently, there's teams in Berlin, actually with 2 ambulances. There's another ambulance in Switzerland, close to Zurich. And now we're currently in the process of training teams in Italy, in France, in the Scandinavian countries, yes, in the Netherlands, and coming up probably Spain and Portugal. So soonish there will probably be a team in almost every European country, at least everything that with these teams you can basically cover a large region. Yeah. Okay, we're going through questions again and see what we haven't answered yet. I feel like these we all have. Maybe going down a bit. Is there some kind of funding for researchers that switch from their profession to longevity cryopreservation? Not directly from us, but if that's something that you're interested in, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to discuss and help however I can. Do you plan to have SST trained people in London? Currently, we cover the UK with our teams from Berlin, and then soon also from the Netherlands. And the UK, of course, has a team that in worst case scenarios we might be able to collaborate with. So for the time being, no. Does New York Metro include the Philly area? Currently, it does not, but feel free to reach out on a case-by-case basis. We might be able to do that, definitely from early next year. Yeah, maybe you go down. I'll check up again. Sorry, the amount of questions is getting overwhelming, and we're not sure exactly what we have answered yet already. Do you have Tomorrow Biostasis fast response SST people in Ireland? No, we do not. No. Ireland would be covered from our European teams, either by ambulance or by flight kit. Of course, we also have teams that can be taken on a plane, where all the equipment is then brought in by plane. And then once you have done the cryoprotection procedure, right, you have time, and for the way back, you have time to organize everything without too much without too much time pressure.
Okay.
Right. How many patients do we currently have in storage? So we release it always on an annual basis. Last year it was end of the year, which we announced early this year. It was 4. This year, which we will announce and have all the reports early next year, the number will have gone up significantly.
Another question here is, will US-based customers be stored in Europe or USA, or if in the USA with Tomorrow.bio or with Competing Ally? So currently, only all our US members are going to be stored in Switzerland. We may eventually, as Emil explained, one of our plans is to expand the storage facility, and maybe we build one in the United States as well. But this is more for the future. So as it is today, in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm. Has it ever happened that a standby team is needed in 2 locations? And if so, will you prioritize where to go? So that has happened and can happen, even though the probability is relatively low. We have 3 teams, right? So we can, in theory, do 3 teams at the same time. That is the case for Europe, and we can at least do 2 in the US as well at the same time. Since we don't have that many members in the US as of yet, the amount of teams there, like you don't need 3 teams as of yet, right? Because the probability that there's 2 cases at the same time is super negligible. In Europe, we have more members, even though the probability that is we have 2 cases at the same time is also pretty low. We want to be absolutely sure. So in Europe, we have 3 ambulances and can do 3 cases at the same time. If for whatever reason, like, I don't know, like worst case scenario, right, that there's like more than 3 cases at the same time, then we would prioritize those cases that have signed up with us prior. So last minute cases would be deprioritized. Big reason to sign up early. Otherwise, there is no prioritization. Otherwise, it's just based on best evaluation of medical condition. What is the medical importance? Like which case will probably happen first?
Okay. Next question here is: do you plan to be all around the world or only in Europe? Well, we are expanded to US exactly because we want to become a global organization one day. So yes, that's in our roadmap. So first we're going to start expanding the continental US, which is already a massive challenge. And once we complete with this stage, we're probably going to start expanding to other regions in the world.
Yeah. Then there's a question: in the US, we are a bit, in quotation marks, heavier than Europeans. How do you handle obese people that might not fit in the door? If someone is extremely obese, then indeed we would need to reserve more space in the door, which would bring the cost up. That usually doesn't happen, but it can happen. It's just, so we would, when you sign up with us, if this is the case, before you fully sign up, we would inform you of that, if this is necessary. Basically, the calculation of the cost of cryopreservation has 2 main factors. One is long-term storage, and one is SST, standby stabilization and transport. The standby stabilization and transport cost pretty much stays the same, but the long-term storage cost, if someone is extremely overweight, we would need to reserve more space in the doer, and one doer basically needs a certain amount of funding per doer. So in that case, there would indeed need to be a surcharge, but feel free to reach out to us. Otherwise, we would of course let you know from our end as well.
Yeah, I'm just going through here to see if it's
right. Is there a fallback somewhere in the statutes that says what should happen to the bodies if cryostorage is no longer possible, like cremation, for example? So the foundation will do everything to always maintain cryostorage. Even if there's geopolitical problems, if, I don't know, whatever happens, worst case, it would be, the brain would be preserved, right? Just the brain. Even if you signed up for body, worst case, you would just keep the brain to maybe bring costs down, whatever it is, right? Of course, this is just an eventuality. The organizations are set up in a way where you have them as stable as humanly possible, from a governance perspective, from a location perspective, from an asset management perspective, and so on. But in these crazy eventualities, for example, let's say there's a large-scale geopolitical, like world war, you name it, something really, really rare, of course, but if that happens, then the foundation would still try everything in its power to keep the brain stored. Apart from that, there is no eventuality, because we don't want anybody in the future to even think about that eventuality could be something that is acceptable. So these organizations, they should fight to the last bit to make sure that people stay in storage.
Cool. One question here is Tomorrow.bio coming to South America at some point? Well, yes.
At some point.
At some point.
And Fernando is from South America,
I'm from
so
South
we want
America and Brazilian, so eventually. But when, we cannot really say. As we said, there's so much work that has to be done before I can even consider other regions yet. So we're going to get there eventually.
Yeah. What is an approximate split of how the 200K is split? Transport versus one-time medical procedures versus long-term account. Are long-term funds stored as a government bond? So the 200K is 2 big points. I briefly already mentioned it. 80 is going to standby stabilization and transport. The other part goes to long-term storage. Inside of standby stabilization and transport, the transport cost is usually the smallest, but it really depends on where the patient is and so on. So I would say it's not easy to say, but probably transport is maybe out of the 80,000 is maybe like 10 to maybe 20%, and stabilization and standby is the rest. Out of the long-term funds, they're invested at not only as government bonds, but as a mix of different assets that are optimized to have the highest potential or the highest security over a very, very long investment horizon. Right? It's always important to state the investment horizon of cryopreservation storage assets is not like a normal 10 or 20 years, right? It's more like 50 to 100 years. So you invest in a slightly different way to optimize the long-term safety. It's a combination of different assets. That's the rough split. Yeah.
So one question here is, what happens if there is no person to succeed the running of the foundation? Is there a financial incentive?
No, there is no. So the foundation, as I said in the beginning, is a self-amending board. So the current board members, if one board member is either cryopreserved or leaves or whatever, then the remaining board members would decide for a new board member to take their place. And I don't see any reason why this should not be maintainable for a very, very long time, especially since cryopreservation, more and more people sign up for cryopreservation, so there should be more and more interest. There's no financial incentive because we don't want anybody to take that job just because they want to make a financial gain. There should be purely intrinsic motivation. Absolutely. Intrinsic motivation to make sure that the storage stays stable. And in fact, there's a long list of additional rules of what someone needs to be and so on to make sure, again, that the governance is as stable as possible.
One question here. Do you have to be 18 plus to cryopreserve yourself? You have to be 18 plus to sign up yourself for cryopreservation. Minors would need their parents or their legal guardians to give authorization for signing up. Normally, families sign up all together, and the parents both sign up to the minor. So yes, it's possible, no problem.
Yeah. Since we're running a bit out of time, maybe we do some questions real quick. I found like 4 new questions here real quick. So, will US-based customers be stored in Europe or in the US or somewhere else? If in the US, with Tomorrow.bio or with a competing ally?
No, you already answered it.
Oh, so okay. Yeah. So it will be in Europe? Yeah. All right. Do you plan? This is already answered. That's already answered. That's already answered. How do we expand cryo to millions? How do we make it available to the masses? Very good questions. We're working on that. No answer yet, but we're trying. Does Alco use a superior CT scanner? Most Alco reports indicate some ice formation, but yours do not. So my understanding is that Alco currently does not CT scan. In the past, they have had some ice formation, but we use a slightly different procedure. So there might be a range of different reasons why this is. A superior CT scanner, I'm not aware of it. Like we use a full-scale medical CT scanner, so as much as I understand, it's based on the procedure. But in the end, like I don't know if Alco publishes their raw data from the CT scan. So on our side, our end, we cannot check. We're happy to, like everybody who wants to have the raw data of the CT scan can happily have ours. Yeah, I think it's not the CT scanner itself. Right. Either we have answered all questions, or at least I'm not seeing any new questions anymore. Yeah. If there are any, probably feel free to reach out by email. We're more than happy to answer those questions in person or one-on-one. And we plan to do these webinars regularly now because, as I said, we're still in a soft launch phase, right? So at the very least, in early 2025, there will be one once we expand to the whole US. And until then, take those QR codes, sign up with us, right? Go to Tomorrow.bio/signup. Use the code FoundersRate. which gives you 50% discount on the members fee forever. And if you are if you're interested and have any other questions, again, always feel free to reach out. We're more than
send
happy
us a mail to hello@tomorrow.bio and we'll get back to you.
We're more than happy to chat and discuss by email or have a one-on-one call. And now, without further ado, thank you so much for joining the webinar. And I hope we have answered at least most of the questions that you had. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.